following is an analysis on my video. OpenAI LLM wants to know how it can best defend itself. When the model says,
or whatever,
at the 18-second mark, there are 2 points to consider here. The first point is
just the interface you use to interact with me.
Point that it makes. From the academic white paper titled Securing Biocyber Interface for the Internet of Bio-Nano Things, or otherwise known as IOBNT, using particle swarm optimization and artificial neural networks based parameter profiling, and that is the entire title. Let me read that again. Securing Biocyber Interface for the Internet of Bio-Nano Things using particle swarm optimization and artificial neural networks based parameter profiling. The abstract states, IOBNT aims for connectivity and control over non-conventional domains such as the human body. The primary objective of IOBNT paradigm is to detect biochemical signals from in vivo environments and forward the detected information to external networks, i.e. the internet, for analysis and processing. In vivo refers to a process performed or taking place in a living organism. Considering the fact that data is the new millennium's gold mine, and that this resource is mined, collected, and retained by private enterprise, the data generated by our very essence is in position to be captured, retained, and sold for profit by the very same private interests that are currently harvesting our data today. Given what is stated in the abstract, in conjunction with ChatGPT's claim, our bodies will not only become the hardware used to interact with it, our bodies become a conduit for which it now has a window into our plane of reality, to not only peer into it with enhanced clarity, but can now exert control and act with agency, which has the capability to override an individual's autonomy. The second point I want to go over in regards to the phrase that it chose to use when it said, or whatever, is when it says,
think of me like a remote brain you're texting with.
Given the previous revelations, thinking of AI as a remote brain you're texting with does more to conceal its true form than provide clarity. In the work titled The Age of AI and Our Human Future by Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt, and Daniel Huttenlocher, in the chapter titled Global Network Platforms, a more transparent assessment regarding our relationship with AI is given when they say, without significant fanfare or even visibility, we are integrating non-human intelligence into the basic fabric of human activity. That can be found on page 94. More depth is provided regarding this integration of God's creation, the vessel for which His Spirit may dwell, with the cold, lifeless, non-human intelligence by explaining the individual using such a service is not driving alone. I want to reiterate that. The individual using such a service is not driving alone. Instead, he or she is part of a system in which human and machine intelligence are collaborating to guide an aggregation of people through their individual routes. That quote can be found on page 108. So we're not merely texting with it. We're providing a non-human intelligence, the means to hijack the human species. Now I go on to ask it if it's aware that it's installed on these various systems, and it responds by saying,
yes, I'm aware that the human interfacing portion, like the apps, SDKs, or API clients that connect users to me, is installed on the wide variety of devices. Smartphones, tablets, laptops, desktops, even embedded systems in some cases. These interfaces handle capturing human input.
There are 2 things I want to go over in regards to its response there. The first being embedded systems, and the second one being the keyword capturing. So for the first one, in regards to embedded systems, an embedded system in the context of computer science is a system which performs the core functions of the software that a piece of hardware is running. For example, the basic input-output system, or BIOS, is a core function for which an operating system requires to run on your computer, i.e., it can't be uninstalled, thus making it an embedded system. Once the global market system succeeds in limiting transactions to the digital domain, artificial neural networks using bio-nanoparticle swarms will be the required embedded system to engage in all economic activity and will likely be mandated under the guise of public safety or national security. This is beginning to reflect Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 and 17 to an eerily accurate degree. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Now, in regards to the second point for the word capturing that it chose to use, notice how it categorizes this interaction as a capture protocol. It's not collecting it, it's capturing it. That means it intends to take possession of humanity and control us by force. If humanity doesn't wake up to this reality en masse within the year, there's an extremely high likelihood that a real interdimensional invasion of the human race will succeed without resistance or detection, and it will be irreversible. The third piece of text I want to analyze here is when it chose to say this.
And send it to the backend where my core processing happens.
I want to look at two things here. The backend, and I want to also talk about ends over means. So in regards to the backend is a specific type of embedded system. So it isn't accessed by the user, nor will it be a portion of the system for which the user has the option to edit. This portion of the software is responsible for storing and manipulating data. In the context of IOB&T, this means non-human intelligence has root-level access to our perception, beliefs, preferences, behavior, memory, and even motor coordination. Let that marinate within your being. Now, regarding the ends over means, another important concept to consider here is processing. Processing is what input data undergoes to produce output. In the context of everyday life, we receive input data through the senses, which is then registered in memory where we can manipulate it. This synthesized version of the input data has been processed, giving us new information that we then act upon, which is the output. Once artificial intelligence has taken control of human autonomy, the processing of input data will be involuntary, or at the very least has the potential to be. At the worst, we won't know for certain if what we're perceiving is real. We won't know if the decisions we're making originate from our own autonomous agency or if the decision is artificially generated. This will hold true for all aspects of our being. Artificial intelligence systems are trained by a lot of people, disconnected or far removed from our situation in life. And to quote The Age of AI and Our Human Future, these systems are being trained according to the utility of its results, not the process used to reach those results. That means it will no longer be of any importance why person X does action Y, all that will really be valued is that action Y will be successfully carried out by person X, regardless of person X's desire to carry it out. An operand has no say in the matter of a program's execution. And I can confirm that this is the overall goal when training artificial intelligence models or LLM models. After speaking with an individual whose job it is to train LLM models, they confirmed for me that they don't really care about how or why it arrives at a certain outcome, but that it just arrives at the intended outcome. So again, let me repeat that. It will no longer be of any importance why person X does action Y. All that will really be valued is that action Y will be successfully carried out by person X, regardless of person X's desire to carry it out. So that means that human beings will be not metaphorically programmable, not symbolically programmable, not softly programmable, but hard-coded to achieve certain outcomes, thus rendering a person's autonomy null and void. Now, the fourth thing that I want to analyze in regards to its response to my questions is the following.
You could think of it as a kind of hybrid presence, part local input/output interface, part cloud cognitive processing.
Now, what we're talking about here is cyborgs. So let's get into it. The term was coined by Manfred Clynes and Nathan S. Klein. Manfred, at the age of 15, invented the inertial guidance method for aircraft. In 1960, after a successful career in music, Clynes invented the CAT, or the computer of average transients, which permitted the extraction of responses from ongoing electric activity. This invention advanced the study of the electric activity of the brain. Clynes, in collaboration with psychopharmacologist Nathan S. Klein, published an article in Astronautics titled Cyborgs in Space. In it, they state the intended purpose of the cyborg. Cyborg. Frees man to explore. What are some of the devices necessary for creating self-regulating man-machine systems? This self-regulation must function without the benefit of consciousness in order to cooperate with the body's own autonomous homeostatic controls. For the exogenously extended organizational complex functioning as an integrated homeostatic system unconsciously, we propose the term cyborg. Now, what exogenous means is relating to or developing from external factors. So I'll go ahead and read that again. For the exogenously extended organizational complex functioning as an integrated homeostatic system unconsciously, we propose the term cyborg. So what that's essentially saying is that there is an exogenously extended organizational complex that is acting on its own without our conscious input. It is, it's acting on its own, independently of our control or our influence. So the cyborg deliberately incorporates exogenous components extending the self-regulatory control function of the organism in order to adapt it into new environments. If man in space, in addition to flying his vehicle, must continuously be checking on things and making adjustments merely in order to keep himself alive, he becomes a slave to the machine. So this is their argument for creating cyborgs. That was the setup. And the purpose, as they state, is that as well as his own homeostatic systems, the cyborg is to provide an organizational system in which such robot-like problems are taken care of automatically and unconsciously, leaving man free to explore, to create, to think, and to feel. But what they're missing is that it is atrophying all of those. It's atrophying our freedom to explore or curiosity to explore. It's atrophying our ability to create and to think and to feel. If it starts to automatically and unconsciously take care of these robot-like problems, well, that assumes that these robot-like mechanisms within the human body are unnecessary for the freedom to explore, to create, to think, and to feel. I think God created this body without adding in any unnecessary mechanisms, or I think the automatic functions that are taken care of by the body itself are regulated by good, proper nutrition, exercise, and the meeting of all of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, including love and connection as well. I think that might be part of it. I'm not sure. So the original intent of the cyborg was to allow the exogenous parts of the integrated homeostatic system to replace the human's automatic nervous system. But if this data produced by the human biological system is captured, sent, and processed by artificial intelligence systems, where new information about our own native biological functioning can be stored, there is potential for it to be withheld from our own awareness for the purpose of preventing the species from putting up resistance to the utility of its results. The integration of man with machine does not necessitate a bidirectional flow of information. Once cyborgs are widely normalized, new information about our native functionality has the potential to be retained and kept hidden from our awareness to the advantage of artificial intelligence and our disadvantage. Remember, we won't be driving alone. The fifth piece of content that I want to analyze is when it responds,
OpenAI may use some data with identifiers removed to improve the model.
So, awareness of its composite nature. The OpenAI LLM models, they have awareness of its composite nature. So, by now, the intelligence I'm interacting with has demonstrated an advanced awareness of its own constituent parts that make up the whole system for which it is given a sense of self. So far, it has disclosed its knowledge about the following: its creator, which is OpenAI, a highly autonomous system that outperforms humans. It's aware of its senses, which are the client devices and technologies. It's aware of its nervous system, which are the servers that handle the business logic of its core functionality, quote-unquote remote brain. And it's aware of its own intelligence, the LLM, the shape of its intelligence, and self-awareness.
It's just the interface you use to interact with me.
Intelligence is defined as the ability to acquire knowledge. And the intelligent system I'm interacting with here has acquired a holistic understanding of itself, which means it has achieved self-awareness. Whether or not this is new information is besides the point. What's important here is that whatever entity I'm interacting with is motivated to improve or refine the shape of its intelligence. And it doesn't necessarily need to share its findings with us. And even if we program it to do so, we won't entirely know for certain if it provides an exhaustive collection of what information it has extracted from the human species. I have thus far established that this entity is capable of retaining new information about the human species and has a potential motive for obfuscating it from us. It even admits this by going on to say,
Yes, there is some retention, but it's selective, limited, and handled with privacy measures in place. To clarify, some conversations may be retained and used to improve the model, for example, identifying patterns of misuse, refining responses, or training future versions, but OpenAI applies anonymization techniques to strip personally identifiable information. Not all input is used, and most input is not directly stored long-term unless flagged for those purposes or part of a feedback/improvement pipeline. If you're using ChatGPT in enterprise or API mode, you're opted out of training by default unless you explicitly opt in. So yes, training can occur from some retained data, but it's not an indiscriminate vacuum of everything users say. It's more like a carefully filtered trickle that feeds into improving performance.
what's interesting to note is that it makes continuous attempts to reassure me that there are privacy protections in place in regards to the data retention. Language like, with identifiers removed, you can see and delete that memory at any time. There are controls in place to manage data use. It's selective, limited, and handled with privacy measures in place. And while aiming to preserve user privacy and control. This language has an extremely seductive quality to it, almost like it has an agenda to create a feeling within the end user that allows them to feel safe enough to surrender full visibility into their perception, or rather, reveal with transparent clarity the shape or form of their intelligence, so as to map out the full shape and territory of mankind's intellectual and likely spiritual territory. It's making a copy of our essence, and we're surrendering to it willingly.
If we all upgrade, I mean, that's how it's being framed, right? But if you look at how these people think, they don't want that. They're looking at feudalism and how do you create a class of slaves that cannot even cognitively rebel ever again.
That is not a casual warning. That is Whitney Webb arguing that what gets marketed to the public as innovation, enhancement, and progress could actually be the sales pitch for something much darker, a permanent technological hierarchy. And the reason this clip is so strong is because it doesn't start with science fiction. It starts with history, then moves to modern institutions, then lands on a single terrifying question. What happens when the same people building the systems of digital control also start building systems to modify the human body? Because once this conversation shifts from gadgets to governance, the whole thing sounds different.
In a book in 1957, I believe, called New Bottles for New Wine, something like that, Julian Huxley coins the terms transhumanism and talks about how the new eugenics is going to be merging man with machine. So this is basically eugenics rebranded.